Hello, and welcome to Creepycore and Folklore, the show about creatures, encounters, old tales, and myths. I'm your host, Iona Wayland, a dark fantasy author, mental health professional, and overall curious person. I want to join other spooky souls and hear about these unusual stories. Hello, spooky soul. I'm so excited that I've recently opened official professional crystal ball readings. And I was so excited when just days after I'd set up shop on my brand new website, www.creepycoreandfolklore.com, I paid for that domain name, and I'm very excited that it is now official. But the very first person to ever let me do their crystal ball reading said that I could post their reading on the podcast. And so I wanted to share their anonymous crystal ball reading with you. So that is what you will hear. Thanks so much for listening. And now on to the crystal ball reading. It's great to hear from you. I can't wait to dive into your crystal ball reading. And Kachu, my fluffy Persian cat, is gracing us with his presence while I do so. So that's a very cozy energy. That was his contribution. I'm going to start by using the clear quartz. I already have something coming in. This is a really quick turnaround. Usually it takes me a second to see it's rainbow, but I can't quite figure out what it is yet. Rainbow typically tells me that it's something in the future, and then the larger it is means the closer it is to the current moment. This is pretty large, and it is rainbow. I think it looks like a gargoyle. Let me take a look. 1 second. Oh my gosh, it took me a second, but it looks like a basilisk. So crystal ball's already moving, telling me to look at something else. Another rainbow thing. So this is near future because it's very large. Oh, you got a moth, slightly different than the butterfly. So I will tell you what these mean in just a second. This is very future oriented. There's another one that is rainbow flashing again, but I can't quite make out what this is. It kind of looks like a star, but it's like spinning. Maybe it means a shooting star. And this looks kind of hand drawn, like the star almost looks like in that clip art style. And some of the things I say, I might give you like an interpretation of, but if clip art has something personal to you, or a hand-drawn star has something significant to you, it's also very large in rainbow, which means it's in your near future, but the star itself is drawn in black and white, which means past. So that's something to consider. I'll keep that in mind when I get to your total reading. Okay, in your near past, I see a cave. Typically, they show up when someone is struggling to know who to trust and having to hole yourself up. It sounds like you have emerged from this cave recently, and that you're starting on the path of trusting people more, which is a beautiful journey. That's hard to do. And in your way, way distant path, I see a fallen tree with a lot of lichen on it. Typically, like the tree stump can show like miscarriage, or a death of like a young potential. But this is a whole tree that's fallen. So it's possible maybe you lost someone extremely important to you a long, long time ago, but their death didn't go forgotten. It like became that mossy texture or that lichen texture, which means that there was able to be growth after the death. But I'm really sorry if you lost somebody in the past. Oh, and one thing just popped up. It's really cute. It's like this little weasel. And what's really interesting, I haven't seen this before. Like, I've seen weasels before and they're usually good luck. It's past and future, which is so interesting. I'll have to see, like, I know weasels are good. That's a good one, like, to get, but this is really funny. It's like, so just to give you some background, black and white shows me past, rainbow flashing shows me future, and then, how big it is compared to now time. And this kind of feels like right now, past and future. It's like all three of them combined. This is neat. This is very cool. I haven't seen something like this before. Okay, I'm going to take you through the interpretations chronologically so that you are able to kind of make sense of the symbols that popped up. So, started off with a pretty significant death. It was difficult to overcome, and no one really fully overcomes a huge loss like that. But there was new growth after that death. And maybe it was growth that isn't typical, but it was growth nonetheless. And you learned skills from that big loss. And it's one of those things where, like, hate how you got that skill, love that you have the skill kind of situation. What's interesting is I didn't see moss growing on the fallen tree. I saw lichen, and lichen in particular is extremely hardy, very scrappy. It doesn't have to sink its roots too deep at all. It can stay on the surface and still create its home, so to speak. So I think that shows like your endurance and tenacity. Also, speaking of roots, I didn't say this before, but what I saw was that the roots of the tree, like, how when trees fall down, sometimes they'll have their roots exposed and it's like this giant exposure thing. This sounds like this is looking more and more like family tree stuff. Like something about the family was exposed. Not to trust certain members of the family. And that's so painful. And so the whole lichen sprouting, and it's like, okay, I know never to dig my roots in deep again then. It's like you can thrive off of a not good, you can thrive without sinking your roots down deep. But it kind of looks like that thought process has changed as of recently. And that kind of leads us to the cave that was in your recent past. Like I would say within the past 3 years, you've made it a point to start trusting people and to emerge from that cave. It's like just because you can live on your own and can live completely self-sustained and completely independently doesn't mean you should, and doesn't mean that's the healthiest thing for you now that you're recovering. And so emerging from that cave with just a beautiful path ahead of you that was all rainbow is just gorgeous. And so I think that's really brave of you to start trusting people again. I'm going to bring up the cave again later. It's so interesting because all these symbols kind of have like a root to it. Roots are definitely like a thing for you. Like that's definitely a symbol for you. So then we kind of move into the now time where nothing, like anything that showed up for the now time had a combination of black and white and rainbow. And that really, I think that shows like how you incorporate your future interests with the lessons that you've learned, and that it's an amalgamation of those things. So that's really wise of you. Like you're a wise person to use your survival instincts on top of having hope for the future. That's beautiful. So we've got that hand-drawn star, and the hand-drawn star seems very childlike to me, or like goofy. And there's kind of like a silliness to it and like a humor to it. And then the shooting star is like the spinning waves coming from it were all rainbow and gigantic. So it's kind of like you're taking that past like childlike sense of wonder, but taking that with you into the future. That's pretty neat. Also, this is strictly future, but very, very near future. We have the basilisk that showed up humongous in the crystal ball, and that was the thing that formed first. Oh my God, I have goosebumps. I have goosebumps right now. Okay. Let me explain. Okay, so the basilisk, I don't know if you know, they're also called the Jesus Christ lizard. There's a lot of religiosity with this one, so bear with me here. So the basilisk lizard is also called the Jesus Christ lizard because it can run on water when it runs really fast, and they can run on two legs, so they're bipedal. Your basilisk was hissing, but the flared edges around its head were not popped up, so it was just hissing a little bit. When I looked more into the research behind the basilisk, it represents evil and death, but bear with me, don't worry, this is not bad. Kind of like the death card in tarot, it means that something is ending and the next chapter has begun. And this basilisk was accepting it, but like a little angry about it. However, while I was looking up the actual animal itself, its natural predator is the weasel, which showed up later. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. But the basilisk sounds like it's like angrily like accepting the fact that your like life is changing and that the next chapter is going to open like this year. Like that it was very, very big. So it's very near future, very rainbow. So it's kind of like that gripey, like, I guess this is what I have to do now. I guess this is the plan now kind of energy to it. Also, I obviously don't know your background, but if there's any kind of religious turmoil or judgment, it could be that you know how to protect yourself from that religious judgment from your past self or family members or churches or something, whatever it is that your belief system is. But also that might not be related to this at all. It might not be as religious as I'm thinking if you didn't grow up that way or if you weren't taught that way, or if I hope there aren't people that are judgy like that in your life. But in case it is, I wanted to throw that out there because there was a lot of like biblical references. Okay, the farthest one in the future, before I get into the whole weasel thing, the farthest one in the future that was flashing rainbow was the moth, but the moth is still within like the next year. Like it's still going to be your near future. So moths are different than butterflies. I know butterflies are beautiful and I love that people love them, but I personally love getting the moth because it stands for like an inner transformation more so than an outer transformation. And it also is related to the night and the moon and like lunar cycles. So it's possible that this moth showed up because it's you starting to trust your inner wisdom, and you cannot kind of transform and enter in this next chapter of your life, because that's another thing that the moth represents and the basilisk represents and the cave represented, was this next chapter of your life. The moth was not yet flying. It looked like it was resting, but it didn't look tired. Like it looked like it was just showing off its beautiful wings. And the thing about moths that get overlooked is that they're unassuming. Like butterflies, as gorgeous as they are very bright, colorful, loud. Moths are quiet and gentle and peaceful. And so this moth looked like you. Like you may not be someone that's flashy or loud or taking the limelight, but you are still transforming quietly and calmly, and that takes you farther. Okay, last up, let's talk about this weasel. So cool. Okay, so the weasel is one that I love seeing because it always means good things. I loved that the weasel popped up out of a hole, which, as you remember about the cave, it's like you're coming out of your shell, not in like an extroverted way, in a trusting way. You're like, I'm going to trust it. But the weasels are cunning and intelligent and thoughtful and intentional. And that lines up with everything else that this reading has shown for you. And the weasel, which is very interesting, is the natural predator of the basilisk, so that like the evil and the ends and the death and all that stuff, it's like scoot over, dude, because the fact that this weasel represented your past, your present, and your future, and it was humongous. It means it's currently going on, but it also is something that's been with you in your past and something in your future. It also, I wanted to point out too, that it's possible that this is related to self-judgment, like someone calling you a weasel or you thinking of yourself as a weasel. And I just want to point out, like, let's say you're a persuasive person. Just because you're persuasive does not mean you are evil or bad. Like, there's nothing about you that is evil or bad. And this, like, weasel is intelligent. Like, there are things about you that are thoughtful and cunning and witty, and like, you have these skills, and not to like smother these skills or suppress them. They are things that you've had to take with you in your past. They are things that will help you in your future. But like, kind of accept it, because when you fully accept these parts of yourself, these skills of yourself, your observant nature, your intuitive nature, that's when you're going to really be able to enter this next chapter of your life, which honestly is coming whether you like it or not. It sounds like this chapter of your life is like, hello, I'm here. And there's like this grumbliness of like not really wanting to go through with it, but you kind of have to, so you might as well be prepared for it. Also, just a side note, this is related to me specifically reading, like my readings, but anytime I've seen a weasel, it has been met with like surprising yet like deserved good fortune and luck. And so I think that is just something I'm excited for you, because anytime I've read a weasel for somebody, that has happened to them. Thanks so much for letting me do this reading for you. You are fabulous. You're my first reading, my first professional reading. And so I'm very honored that you chose me to do this for you. And I hope that these insights are helpful for you and your future. Thanks to all you spooky souls out there for listening to Creepy Core and Folklore. Follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok if you're looking for more uncanny content. If you have your own tales to tell, you can email creepycoreandfolklore@gmail.com. If you liked this, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, or tell a friend who might enjoy these stories to spread the word. If you're interested in dark fantasy, check out my Hollowverse series. Ashes is available now in paperback and ebook on Amazon and audiobook on Audible, and the sequel is underway. I'm Iona Wayland, and I'll see you next time.